Hi,
Hi,
I'm Ido Lev,
I'm Ben Goldenberg.
and today we're going to talk about how to connect to our inner power. So, what I want to tell you about is something I'm doing with myself that helps me a lot.
Okay.
And it's a way of realizing that we have in ourselves a lot more power than we realize, than we were taught to believe. Okay. So the main idea is that we can always work on improving our inner power, no matter what happens to us in life. Because sometimes things happen to us that we don't have control over. It could be an accident or disease or losing money or someone leaving us, and then people take it very difficult, like it's very difficult for them to handle it. And even if before it happens, they are very afraid of it, right? There's a lot of anxiety. So the question is how we can optimize the way that we can handle all these things, and just like what's the way to live life to its fullest, to live our life in the highest, most powerful way, to live up to our potential. To what does it mean? Okay. So so the way I think about it is that kind of I'm going to describe some sort of a subjective model of myself. What I mean by that is that this is like how I decide or how I choose to look at myself. What are my character traits? What is my essence? In a way that makes me feel more powerful and allows me to direct myself more efficiently to do things. Now this, I say it's a subjective model rather than objective, because I don't claim that this is objectively true. I don't claim that this is like scientifically proven or things like that. It's just like the some sort of a way I choose to imagine myself, and that has a lot of benefits, that helps me a lot to deal with things in my life and improve myself. So the idea is to say that this is the important part, and then I will, of course, will talk about it a lot and explain what it is. So the idea is to say that who I really am, my essence, is actually a very, very powerful being, spiritual being, if you want, that is powerful, is infinite, is eternal. Some people call it a soul, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that you imagine yourself as a powerful being, and there are different ways of doing it. And this is who you really are. Now, in this powerful being, never feels fear or sadness or anger or envy. It's all only about love and happiness and confidence and optimism and courage, creativity, generosity, all the positive traits that we admire in people.
Right.
And just let me feel. And then in addition to that, there is, in addition to this essence, which is who I really am, there is the self. The self is like the sort of like the physical manifestation of the essence in this body. So the self does have both pleasant emotions like happiness and joy and love, and also unpleasant emotions like sadness and fear and anger, and is worried about survival, and worried about having enough money and finding love and all of that. But this separation allows me to focus my attention, my focus, my consciousness again and again to the powerful part which is really who I am. And then it helps me to have this powerful place inside of me that allows me to handle all these painful emotions and whatever else happens in life.
Yeah. I mean, for me, we tend to become very identified with our troubles, with our pains. And it's interesting to do an exercise, like you said, that if we accept that we are an endless being, a soul, maybe a god, some would say, then how would such an entity would feel? How would such an entity would behave? How would such an entity would walk and do a task in a day? And if we can meditate about that, maybe it will filter to what we call ourself or our everyday self or personality, or how would you like to call it?
Yeah.
And it also connects to me with what is the aim of
Life.
meaning of life, of being here. I mean, is the meaning to have children or to eat or to
have a lot of money,
or to have a lot of money? Right.
Have
So
a house.
yeah. So what is really the meaning? And if we will understand what is the meaning for us and how it connects to everything.
So for me, the meaning, I looked into this question for many years and read all kinds of things about it. And there are different answers out there, but then I collected things that I really related to. So for me, the answer is that the meaning or purpose that I choose for myself in my life is to first of all know who I am in all kinds of ways, which we can go into. It's meaning both the self, like all the character traits and emotions, all of that, but also more importantly the essence, this powerful being that I really am, all these strengths that I have in me. So when I know that, I can use them. So that's one thing. Then to connect with other people and with myself and with the world, and to develop myself, to improve myself and help other people do it.
Yes. As we said earlier in our talk, is that if we finish our cycle and we start a new cycle of life, or we continue this cycle, but if we finish our cycle, we don't take with us the house, the things,
physical belongings.
Physical belongings. Relationships, maybe we will meet that person in the second life, maybe not.
If there is a second life, yes.
If there is another life.
If you believe in it, then.
But what stays is the virtues we develop, the
strength, yeah, all the experiences that you have that allowed you to improve yourself, to become more connected to who you really are. Because the thing is that in this story, like what you said, afterlife, before life, so there is this story that you can choose to take as a model, if that helps you, that before we were born in this body, we were this spiritual entity, a soul, and we chose to go into this body in these particular circumstances of our birth deliberately in order to experience certain good things like enjoyments and fun and nice things that are in this world, like nature and connection with people, but also we chose specific challenges that force us to handle, to be able to handle them, to learn how to handle them. So according to this model or this story, if someone is born to poverty or has some accident or some debilitating disease, the soul chose this in order to experience this thing, because for the soul all this life is sort of like a virtual reality. Right. I mean, it's some sort of like a game, a movie. It ends eventually after a few years, and then you go back and you think about all the things you experienced and learn from it.
Right. For the soul, it might be a split of a seconds, all these 100 years that we live.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So, but anyway, it's like, you don't have to believe in it. If it's helpful for you, then you can use it. But the main point, which is the underlying point of all the things we talked about so far, is to understand that we have much more power than we were taught to believe. And in fact, even when you look at young kids, you see that they're in certain ways more powerful than adults. Let's say they're more free to express their emotions. Yes. They're less fearful to go out and explore, yes. And even and of course they have more things to learn and develop. But even the things that each of us was born with, because of our culture of criticism and trying to coerce people in school and whatever to do things that are not really authentic for them, then we got disconnected from our even those powers that kids have.
Okay.
So one thing is to reconstruct that connection and re-find our connection to these powers that we already had, and then develop more powers. Or in
Right.
fact, I believe that all the powers are already inside of us. We just need to connect to them. And the way we do it is partly by all kinds of techniques of either meditation or psychodrama or learning about things or getting inspiration from other people that manifest these character traits.
Right. Yes, I think children have more, they have some self-acceptances and less criticism about themselves and their environment.
Mm-hmm.
They're more in their essence.
Yeah.
They're more
Like
true to themselves.
No child who is born has any self-criticism. They only love themselves.
Exactly.
It's only they absorb this from the outside.
Maybe. There's a lot of work that some people do, and I'm not really know about it too much, about working with the inner child, trying to connect to the inner child and trying to understand and maybe strengthen the inner child.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I'm trying slowly to do in the last couple of days or week, to try to see what my inner child wants during the day, if he wants to rest, if he wants to do that and that, and trying to really connect to that child inside.
Yeah, the important thing about what you're doing is that we were taught to be disconnected from what we really feel and want. I mean, when we grew up, inevitably the parents, from good intentions usually, try to make the child not to do certain things, and it depends on how they explain it. If they explain it in a correct way, in a good explanation, then that's fine. But if they do it with punishment, with yelling, with being angry, with passive-aggressive behavior, then we learn that what we feel is not okay, and we start hiding it from ourselves.
Yes.
So then when you're saying, and then what happens is that we are not sensitive to, let's say, even if we are hungry or tired or what we feel. So that's what you're saying, that you're trying to reconnect to that part.
Yes, because if you're not connected to yourself, to your inner child, then your needs or your wants, you're not connected to your wants, you're not connected to your real needs, and sometimes other people needs take account and take more force upon what you need.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm trying to really connect to what my needs are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it can be scary because that's exactly what we were taught not to do, right? Mm-hmm. If you have certain needs and they conflict with your family or the teacher, then they tell you that it's not legitimate what you want. You need to be considerate. You need to do what you are told.
Right.
So it's not just, okay, now we realize it, let's connect to our needs and do it. A lot of fear comes up. A lot of fear from all this programming that was inserted into our mind. That if you do, or if you're connected to your real needs and try to satisfy them, try to do what you really want, then you will be judged, and people won't like you, or be angry with you, or cast you out of the tribe. And that's why people are so afraid of being authentic and being connected to their inner child and who they really are.
Yeah. Sometimes your family and parents give you certain traits, and I call it like a behavioral inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
That you inherited a certain traits, but they're not genetic, but they are behavioral.
Yes.
And they are fused into your brain, and something you need to work with. And sometimes it has, like in my case, I see like my parents told me, oh, you're not good enough, you need to do better. So if I have a test, I got 90, you need to do better. You need to get 95, and it's 95, you need to get 100. It's 100, you need to get 100 in all subjects. So it's always not good enough, and you might think, well, it helps you because I did have a good grades, I did try to do my best, But later in life, I saw that it continues that cycle, that I'm not good enough, that I need more, and I need more grades, and
The perfectionism.
some kind of perfectionism. That the problem with it is that you're doing things not from the right place, not from the right mindset,
Mm-hmm.
not from the calm of and the calmness and the aim that you strive.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing things because you don't feel good enough, you don't feel you are good enough,
Right.
and it's a lot of stress, and it's a lot of
It also only gets worse because
it gets worse.
the stress intensifies itself.
Right.
So you're saying instead, like it could be good. I mean, the striving to improve ourselves, that's a good thing.
Right.
If it's done from light, from a positive place of whatever I am now is good, it's good enough, it's wonderful, I love myself, and I want to continue to improve. I mean, that's how a child is born. But when it starts to be with criticism, which then we absorb and it becomes self-criticism, which I'm not good enough, why didn't I study more, like there was also shame involved, and guilt and fear that I won't succeed enough, then all this negative energy goes into us, and really when we are young we still manage to somehow survive despite of it, but as we get older it becomes bigger and bigger, and it starts to be really debilitating. It ends up being in depression and anxiety, and people blocking themselves and not being able to do what they could have done if they were reconnected to their positive powers.
Exactly.
So I call all of this like negative influence from the outside the virus. It's sort of like that's part of my mental model, which is anything which doesn't make me, any thought which doesn't give me a good feeling of inspiration, of something that makes me gives me a positive motivation to do something, but it's something that makes me feel smaller, weaker, afraid, shameful, guilty, things like that. It's definitely not the way that my true essence thinks. It's not the way that the soul thinks, that our powerful being thinks, because a powerful being only loves itself, only thinks positive things about itself, never thinks that it's did anything wrong in the sense of morally wrong. Maybe we make mistakes, but that's fine. It's okay to make mistakes. We learn from them. We can repair the damage, take responsibility, but it has to be from a positive place. By the way, we have to mention that when we say that this virus was a negative influence that we absorbed from our environment, from our family, from our teachers, from our culture, we're not blaming, because everyone is in the same problem. We are all in the same culture that teaches us all these wrong things. So everyone, that's the only thing that everyone knows, and it's for generations. It's for generations that kids, generation after generation, they are being taught by punishment and fear and guilt and shame, and then they become parents and they teach their kids the same. This is because that's the only thing they know.
Yes.
And they want to prepare their kids to the real world, which is like that currently. And the only way to get out of this is to learn that there are other ways, and to develop the courage to be differently, to be more authentic, and to be more positive and passionate, and have all these positive traits, and find other people to do this with, so that you don't feel alone.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about being aware of the thoughts patterns that you have, and then maybe trying to connect to your higher self or soul, whatever. But today in most spiritual teachings, they're talking about your belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a belief system, or some in your subconscious mind, some beliefs that creates thought patterns, create your emotional being, create your thoughts, or maybe the thoughts create your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And the work is to change those subconscious belief systems.
Yeah. First identify them, that you have
Right.
this belief. Let's say a person might have a belief, I won't succeed. I'm not good enough. And they might not even be aware of that until they start doing some process. Then they
Yeah.
discover it and discover that there is how strong it is inside of them emotionally.
Yeah.
And then there is a process of starting to change the beliefs.
Right.
But in my opinion, in order to be able to succeed in doing that,
Okay.
you need to have this connection to this very, very positive part of yourself, this very positive, powerful view of yourself, that you're
Okay.
not really not worthy of love, that you're not really unsuccessful or weak or not good enough and all of that. It's not merely, we are used to believe it for so many years that it has a lot of emotional baggage,
Yes.
a lot of emotional strength, both that we believe it strongly, that have a powerful emotion to it, and also all the painful emotional baggage that was created because of these beliefs that we still carry with us, that has to be released.
Yes.
So that's why I think that you can't directly immediately go to do that work before you first learn about the fact that you are powerful. It was just, you are just blocked. The power, your inner power is blocked because of all this baggage that you accumulated.
Yeah. And maybe if you in the moment and you manage to interfere or go in the middle of those thought patterns, maybe you can also along the way and or in time change your belief systems without directly working on changing that. But you also need to, or maybe do it in parallel, work on your belief system and also be in the moment and be aware of your thought patterns
Mm-hmm.
and be connected to that higher self.
Yeah, and the way that one way that you can identify which of your beliefs is harmful for you, debilitating, you can ask, how do I feel about it? Does it make me feel good, powerful, strong, lighter, happier, or does it make me feel stressed, sad, angry? And you can also understand that we have all kinds of cognitive distortions, like the way that the brain works sometimes focuses too much on one thing and forgets all the other things.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get exaggeration. So let's say that you failed in one exam, then it exaggerates it. Oh, I'm such a failure, I will always fail, I'm not good in anything.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, okay, in this particular situation I didn't succeed in this exam, but it doesn't say anything about myself, doesn't say anything about other things. So these are there is this exaggeration or seeing things just in black and white. Either you're totally good or totally bad. There's nothing in the middle. But in reality, there's a lot of grades in the middle.
I mean, there's two tools that I was taught. One is to keep scale and relativity. So if something bad happens to you, ask how you would look at it in 20 years time or 40 years time. So what is the real scale of that thing in real life?
So that you see it in proportion.
In proportion.
As opposed to blowing things out of proportion,
Right.
which our mind keeps doing.
Another tool is just say to yourself, just look on the bigger picture. Just pull yourself and look at the bigger picture. And that's another thing you can do in the moment.
Yeah.
When you perceive failure,
so there is
identified it as something.
There's these techniques, and then there's this there's acronym THINK, THINK, which is a set of filters that you can you can check each thought whether it's a good thought or not, or harmful for you.
Right.
So is it T? It means is it true?
Okay.
H means is it helpful? Is it a helpful thought? I, is it inspiring? N, is it necessary? Do I have to think it? And K, is it kind to me? And if it fails at least one of those, then it means it's not. It's a thought that comes from this virus, from the outside, from some debilitating pattern, or developed as a result of other negative thoughts we acquired.
Yeah.
And then we should throw it away to the garbage, and instead think how our positive essence would think about the same situation. So for example, if I fail an exam and then there is a thought, all these negative thoughts, oh, I'm a failure, I will never succeed and all of that, that's definitely not inspiring. That's definitely not kind towards myself. It's not helpful, right? It might, the mind might think that's helpful, because if it tells you that you're not good enough, it might give you motivation to study harder. But it's like a totalitarian regime. It's like really unpleasant to live under such a thing. It's much more useful. Also, if you think about a good parent, how they encourage their kids, they say that no, you're smart, you can succeed, you can, just positive strength, reassurances that, okay, let's investigate exactly why in this particular case you didn't succeed. Maybe you didn't spend enough time learning, or maybe there was something you don't understand, but if you study again, get a better teacher maybe, then you'll understand and you can succeed.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's coming back to the first sentences that we talked, is that when you separate everything that is negative or not helpful to the self, and everything that is positive, is inspiring, is light to the real you, to the higher self, what is real you, then, and what we talked in the beginning is that if you start to do meditation, maybe be in your real you, in your higher self, maybe for half a minute every morning, and then try to do it for a minute, and then try to do it for a couple of minutes, and then for half an hour. Maybe it's a way to try to be in what you call your real higher self, or essence that is positive, that is strong. And it's something that really something that we need to try and do every day.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, it's another good point, which is it's not enough to understand all these ideas, and it's not enough to understand that, let's say, even that the way that we investigate whether a thought is positive or negative, because the issue is that the issue is the emotions. We have a lot of powerful emotions that maybe at a certain point, after I learned enough, I can understand that the thoughts I have are exaggerated and they're not rational, but I feel so afraid, and the emotions are really powerful and they suffocate me. And the only way to balance these emotions is to have positive emotions. And the way to get the positive emotions is to do either guided imagination, where you imagine yourself as a positive, powerful being, or succeeding, or whatever. Like, our imagination has a lot of power. Or doing it as acting it out. Might be even more powerful, where you involve the body. So let's say every morning I go to the mirror and I look at myself, because it helps me to be out of my mind, out of just listening to the default patterns of my mind and looking at something. You can also do it with another person. And say and remind yourself that just saying out loud, I am a powerful being. I came here to experience joy and to develop develop from these challenges that I chose, and I'm all about love and confidence and happiness and optimism and all these positive traits. And this reminds me of who I really am, and from that point I say, okay, even if I feel some unpleasant emotions like fear or anger, okay, I don't let them completely flood me and completely control me. There's also this part. From this part, I'm strong enough to contain the emotions, to try to understand them, to decide what's the right thing to do when I'm confronted with some challenging situation.
And maybe it's a way, because everyone has his own glasses that he sees the world, and he believes in that point of view, he believes in that belief system. But maybe through that meditation you can try to have a sense of another glasses, to put for another glasses, and to see the world in a different way, to transform yourself, because that's what we want to do. We so believe in some point of views, some way to see the world, that we have trouble to see it from another person, through another glass. Maybe through that kind of meditation, we can start cleaning those glasses, maybe, or
Yeah.
see the world in a different way.
Definitely. Like if we are used to seeing the world in a certain way, or seeing ourselves in a certain way, but then we do this connection with the powerful being which we really are, and the positive and all the positive traits, then we say, okay, as you said in the beginning, how would a powerful being behave in such a situation, or think or feel in such a situation? So a powerful being who, let's say, fails an exam, says, okay, I'll learn more and will succeed next time, right? It doesn't start beating itself, feeling guilt or things like that. And the point is that if you really go into this character, then these answers, or the way, I mean, what I'm trying to say is not just think about it theoretically, how would someone else behave in such a situation, but really go into this character, similar to what you do in a drama class or an improv class. In improv class, you say, okay, now you're a character that has this kind of behavior or something, and you really go into it like an actor.
Right.
And you really feel it, and things come out of you. So if you really connect to this powerful being, to this idea, then solutions start coming up. Instead of being focused on the problems or on the negative things, positive things and solutions start coming up.
We need to emphasize that it's a second to second work. It's like you need to be present. You need to be in the present to do that work, because it's not enough to do it a few minutes. It's like doing like conscious work, to be aware in the moment. So it's and it's really connected to many spiritual schools that emphasize on being present as a tool for self-improvement.
Right. So being present means that you're aware of everything that's going on.
Right.
It's not just that your consciousness is focused only on one thing, which is just a very little thing that the mind is thinking about at this moment, which if it's a problem, then you only see the problem and only feel anxiety about it. You see all the other things, because you see that you are first of all the things that are happening at this moment, and you see that you are a powerful being if you remind yourself, and all the powerful strengths that you have inside of you. Then it balances the problem. So you don't have just the problem, you have a lot of other powers and tools to handle it better.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's something else I wanted to mention. So this is all well and nice, and of course, there's a lot more to say about it and how to practice it. And one of the another thing to mention is this idea of the comfort zone.
Okay.
That our comfort zone is the set of things that we feel comfortable doing, that we have no problem doing, like being at home and enjoying ourselves. And everything which is beyond the comfort zone is what is either slightly uncomfortable or very uncomfortable for us, or very frightening. And the thing is that the comfort zone, as it is now, is much smaller than it can be. I mean, can be many more things that we feel comfortable and powerful doing that we currently don't feel, but we can work on it. And it's connected to this thing, because if we are a powerful being, the powerful being has no problem doing anything, right? That's like if it's completely powerful, completely infinite.
Yeah.
So
obviously we don't want to hurt ourselves in some way, because it's yeah, but I understand
it's
what
only
you're saying.
positive things,
yeah,
of course.
I understand what you're saying.
So let's take as an example, if someone feels anxiety going on stage and giving a talk, then that's not in his comfort zone now.
Well,
And But if they remember that they are a powerful being, it's not necessarily that they can immediately do it, but they can do small steps in that direction to gradually expand the comfort zone. So doing things that do feel a little bit uncomfortable. It could be giving a talk as a first step just to one person, then to two people,
Yeah.
three people, or doing it only with friends, and then
Yes.
gradually practicing.
Yes.
Not necessarily that you get on the stage and the first time you feel completely comfortable, but that you feel able enough to do it, that
Right.
you connected, you expanded your power.
Mhm.
And that's the most exciting thing in life, I think, like to be able to do these things, and then you start feeling more free and more powerful, and it's so satisfying. It's like so much more satisfying to feel this power and feel to really identify with this powerful being, as opposed to the kind of fun that our culture sells us, which is wonderful, of course. Also, like going to movies, going to trips, doing pleasant things, it's all wonderful, but it's not something that expands our abilities and our power. And when we focus on constantly expanding our power, we can become such the powerful beings that we really are, that is just blocked by
Yeah.
all our fears and all of that.
I mean, it's an interesting concept. I didn't think about it before, because being comfort is also being in a place where there is no risks. But if you want to evolve, if you want to spiritually change and evolve, you need to take some risks. They're not real risks, but you need to take some risks.
It may feel as a risk,
It may feel as a risk, as uncomfort.
Mhm.
It's really learn new things, and like it connects to me that I was in a party, and I said, well, I want to show some leadership skills. I want to improve my leadership, and I went and I started to lead a group of people, and it did feel a bit uncomfortable at the beginning, but doing some storytelling, jokes and things, I did manage to lead in a way a group of people, so it felt really powerful in a way. So
Mhm.
you need to go out from your comfort zone to learn new things. That's a deep concept. I didn't think about it before.
Yeah. And one of the characters of this powerful being is that the being doesn't necessarily do things only by itself. It can express itself authentically and share. If you're doing this leadership and you feel a bit uncomfortable, it's okay to share with people. In fact, they would appreciate it a lot, because it makes a connection better, and to ask for help if needed also. That's another thing that you can do. So
Yeah, yes. Need to be emotionally open to people, and that is very helpful.
yeah, it's a whole topic of authentic
Right.
communication, and
Yeah.
so okay, I think we have enough for now,
Okay.
and we'll talk about these
Expand
things
about
more.
it.
And yeah, and if you have questions or things that some comments, then you can write them down in the comment section, and we'll be happy to reply.
Yeah, sure.
All right,
Thank you very much.
thanks.